Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the October 28th, 2013 Raleigh Selectmen Board of Selectmen meeting for Raleigh. Call the meeting to order. First on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Ron Keefe, our highway surveyor, is in the audience tonight. Ron, will you lead us in the pledge, please?
Wow, I haven't done this in years. Wow. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ron. Good job.
Even justice for all.
Yes. Okay, I have no chairman's comments tonight. We have a heavy agenda to go forward, and we have from 7:05 right now, it just turned 7:05 until 7:15, the citizen query. So if you have any queries in the audience, you can, between 7:05 and 7:15, you can ask it of the board. We have several appointments tonight. We have appointment at 7 o'clock. I apologize for being a little bit late tonight, and that is with Jamila Elias to discuss us sending a letter to the U.S. Department of Immigration. 7:15, we have an appointment with Gina Parquette to discuss Leslie Road traffic. 7:30, we have an appointment with Acting Refuge Manager Frank Jazuski to discuss the closure of Stackyard Road. 8 o'clock, we have a joint meeting with the ZBA, and that will be an executive session and not to return to regular session at 8 p.m. So we have a lot to cover tonight. So we will begin with, we have an appointment with Jamila Isla?
Elias.
Elias, I'm sorry, excuse me. To discuss sending a letter to the U.S. Department of Immigration. Miss Elias sent the letter following request via email to Vice Chairman Murray. Bob, would you like to address this?
Yeah, basically, I received the email from Ms. Elias through Tony Treadway.
Yeah.
Yeah, you had mentioned it to talk to Tony, and Tony called me.
Yeah.
And I asked her to have you do this so that we could bring it up at the board meeting. So do you want me to read the letter? Or?
Sure.
Okay, it's to myself, Selectman, Town of Raleigh, Mass. Dear Sir, I am known to you as a long-term resident of Raleigh and as proprietor of the Richdale store on the town common. I'm gonna slaughter your name, I'm sorry. My son,
Ishtiak.
Ishbek, will be graduating from Triton Regional School in June 2014. He and my younger son have greatly missed their father, my husband, Elias A. Camellia. We have only been able to visit him twice in the years since he returned to Bangladesh in March of 2010. My sons and I are making a special request to have their father come on a visitor's visa to attend a graduation. We have been advised that it will help if our friends and neighbors show their support for this idea. A letter from the Board of Selectmen would be very nice. It can be brief and simple. Simply state that Alicia Kimmel is known in town as a reliable family man and thought well of as a merchant in the town of Raleigh. Thank you. Thank you from me and my sons. So,
Miss Elias, could you tell us a little bit about your situation besides this? With Elias? With your husband?
Yeah.
Yes.
What do you like? Do you have specific questions or just an overview?
Okay. He is no longer in the United States, correct?
No, last 3.5 years.
For 3.5 years?
Yes.
Since March 2010, yeah.
Okay. Could you
Just an overview, or?
just an overview of what transpired?
He was an illegal immigrant.
Illegal immigrant.
Yeah.
Okay. So he was here for
10 years.
10 years.
10 years this time, yeah.
Okay.
In Raleigh's been here for 10 years.
In Raleigh.
Yeah.
And then government officials, U.S. government officials, how did they get involved?
What do you mean?
How did U.S. government? I take it that U.S. government officials.
Came to a store and catch him. I don't know how to get the information.
We don't know how they figured out that he was here and
Okay.
illegal,
Mm-hmm.
like here specifically in Raleigh. But they did in February, and then
2010.
In 2010.
Yeah,
So in
he was-
February 2010,
16 February 2010.
and he was deported.
Yeah.
yeah, he's
Okay.
forcibly removed.
So immigration naturalization officials came.
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions from the board? On the situation.
I know I've been at the store many times, and they're very nice. They handle their business very, very well, and they're very good to their customers. So
Thank you.
they do a very good job, and I would support the.
And my both son is by born U.S. citizen.
Yeah,
You're a citizen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm green card holder.
she's a
I get
permanent resident.
I get my green card 2011.
You have your green card 2011.
11, yeah.
Okay. And what
They're
happened?
born in New York. He born in New York, and
Yep.
my other son is born in here.
Oh, okay.
And,
Okay.
Beverly.
Now, but the only thing is, your husband. He's been deported. Is he back into the system at all? Or is he?
That's what we're actually trying to do.
Okay.
We went to our lawyer to try and get him back for my graduation, and he's recommended that we get a Selectmen letter
Okay.
in support
Because
of him.
last 10 years he lives this
he's-
town, and everybody knows him.
Yeah.
That's why.
Okay.
My lawyer is Michael Greenberg. He's in
Awesome.
Boston. His name is Michael Greenberg.
Okay.
He's a renowned lawyer
You know,
in
yeah.
immigration.
Okay. Bob, you have any questions?
No, I mean, I'm familiar with the store also. Obviously, I've done some business with the people there, so.
Dave?
No, I'm familiar with the family, and I would vote in favor of us sending a letter.
Thank you so much.
Okay. How does any discussion from the board as a group?
Is there any, excuse me, is there any chance that this is gonna develop, that he could be back home with a family? What procedure do you or anyone have to go forward to help you to get him back?
Is there some way that he could come back
Come back.
and become an
Permanently?
American citizen?
Permanently, yeah. When he will be 21, he will apply for him, and then he will come back
Petition.
for petition.
Huh?
Now he is 17 plus. In February he will be 18. So when he will be 21, he will do the petition for him.
Oh,
But
wow.
next year his graduation, because when when his middle school graduation, he got the President Award. At that time, his father was not here,
Mm-hmm.
and I need to go to court for immigration. So he was going alone with his ceremony. But it is little heartbroken for him, for my
Sure.
little
Mhm.
one.
Sure.
He's finished his elementary. Little one, he's in right now. He's in library, and he finished his elementary. Well, all ceremony, all activities they are going. Sometimes alone, sometimes I able to with them. But this graduation ceremony, I think it
It's
will
kind
be
of special.
it's
Yeah.
kind
Yes.
of special
Yeah.
for
Sure.
us. He's our older son, and that's why I like to request to all,
Mhm.
you can help me, please.
The only charge against your husband was being an illegal alien, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that was
And
it.
Raleigh police give me one letter also. Raleigh police give me,
Yeah.
police chief give me one letter also, supporting letter.
Okay.
I did not bring him right now.
Basically, he didn't
And
have a
he
green
knows
card.
very well.
Yeah.
Check.
Yeah, he didn't have a green card, am I
Yeah.
right? So, yeah,
Okay.
okay.
All right.
I move that we
Do I have a motion from the board?
that we write a letter supporting this, so that Camille can come.
I'll second it.
I have a motion, I have a second. All those in
There was
favor?
there was
yes.
a question about who we send the letter to. Who would you like the letter sent to, or is it just to a general?
Do you mean addressed?
Yeah, do we address it to immigration, or do you want it just,
State
you know, to
Department.
whom it may concern, or
Who make
to whom it may concern? So it's just a general letter of support.
Can I assume that the lawyer will handle it once we write it?
Yeah.
To get it to the right,
Yeah.
right location?
Yes.
Yeah, I think probably direct it to the lawyer.
No, to whom it may concern.
Whom
To
may
whom may
concern,
concern, okay,
and
to
then
whom may
just, we'll give it to them and they can get it to their lawyer.
Right.
Okay.
And we'll put your address on it, to whom it may concern, and send it to your home address, right? And you'll get it to the lawyer. Is that what
Yeah.
you're looking for?
Yeah.
So do you need my home address?
No, we got it
We'll-
on here on the
We'll take
sample
care
you
of
sent. Just so we're clear as to what you need, so we do the right thing. That's what it's for.
Okay. I have a motion, I have a second. We've discussed it. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Well, we hope your situation
I hope it works out.
works out as quickly as
Thank
possible.
you so much.
Okay.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming in tonight.
Thank you.
All the best.
Thank you
so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations on your
You have two
Graduation
very nice
coming
boys
up.
here, too. They're very,
Thank you.
very respectful.
Thank you.
See you in the morning.
You're still playing basketball?
No. No, my brother is.
Good night now. Thank you again. Okay.
Larry's got his hand up.
Excuse me?
Larry's got his hand up over there.
Oh, yes, Larry.
This is Query, Larry White, Central Street. Last week, we discussed a stipend for the business manager and that it would be prorated. And all I was wondering is if, I think there's about another 12 stipends or so.
Could you be specific about which business manager, Larry?
This was in the water department.
Okay, sure.
That it's paid, I guess, the first part of the year, fiscal year. And the person resigned, and you wanted to have it maybe semi-annually or quarterly or
Prorated.
whatever. And I don't know whether the other stipends work that same way or not. But I was just wondering if in the review process, you know, if that could be reviewed and maybe between you and the other departments and the treasurer, if that is a policy, maybe it could be at least reviewed and see if you want to continue paying the other stipends up front rather than some other method that's mutually agreeable.
Larry, that was in regards to the stipend that was in the treasurer's office for the CPC position.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay? It was for the business manager at the water department, only because at the time
Right.
it had moved up to the water department with Laura, because Laura worked in the treasurer's
Right.
office and then went up to the water department. But that position is now firmly in the assistant treasurer's office, in the treasurer's office for the assistant treasurer. Okay.
Right.
But we'll get back to you on the rest of it, okay, Larry?
Fine.
Okay. All right. Moving on, we have 7:15. I apologize for being a little bit behind here. We have Gina Parquette. Gina, please come forward.
Okay.
Find a seat here. Anybody on the agenda, they got a front seat, okay?
Okay.
Okay. And this is 7:15, appointment with Gina Paquette to discuss Leslie Road traffic. Police Chief Barker and Highway Surveyor Ron Keefe are both in the audience tonight and will present for discussion. All the selectmen, you've all read this letter from Ms. Paquette.
Yes.
Okay, and with that, Ms. Paquette, I will turn it over to you.
Okay, well, I didn't realize, I knew Leslie Road would eventually get a little busy with the neighborhood, you know, building behind us. But since my husband is disabled, I've been working home a lot, and I work in the front room. And it just seems like, of course, during the rush hours, the traffic is one by one. 90% of the cars are going from 133 towards Route 1. So that's where they're heading. But I realized, even walking the dog and passing Wilson Pond, a lot of it came from Wilson Pond, Wilkes Road, Cindy Lane, and Ellsworth Road, because when I walked the dog, I started recognizing cars pulling out of their driveways. So they take that long loop around. And as you can see, how many cars have gone by in a short period of a minute, and I just can't believe it. And it was funny because I was at a dinner party and there was two couples who I don't even know. And the topic of the conversation was the traffic on Leslie Road. I happened to bump into another neighbor who lives up by the, towards 133, right over, when you get over the hill.
Yes.
She's right. She said she can't believe the number of New Hampshire plates, because we know it's also a cut through. And we see the people, I even know people from Georgetown who use that as a cut through to Route 1 when they go to work to Beverly or wherever they're going. So somehow, two things. I think we have that Ellsworth Road, that dirt road, and I think it would relieve a lot of the traffic from Wilson down towards Route 1. They don't have to do that long loop around. And I know it's not wide enough for two cars, but nor is Leslie Road. If you're walking on the side of the road, one car always has to stop. And my neighbors are now taking their dogs, putting them in their car, and driving them to Wilson Pond or to another neighborhood so they can walk their dog, because they can't believe how dangerous it is. The day I was writing this letter, now 2 days before I wrote this letter, that's when I called and mentioned about it. The day I was writing it, my daughter and her twin brother came home, and they have to walk from Wilson Pond to my house, and said a white van just missed my daughter. So now I'm thinking, okay, a couple of feet. So I said, oh, and he, my son, who never sticks up for my daughter, said, Ma, it was this much away. He goes, I thought the mirror was going to hit her. So I said, well, something's got to be done. The people, we always know who the cut-through are. They go 40 miles an hour, and they just keep on going. And a few times, just being obsessed with this because I'm in the front room, when I drove into Leslie Road once, I saw a truck and I didn't recognize it, so I kept on going, and it went right to Linebrook Road, took a left down to, towards Cumberland Farms. Who knows where it went after that. But there's a lot of cut-through. Something needs to be done. It's getting really dangerous for people who are walking. It's not bad on the weekends. It's only busy during the morning rush hours and the late rush hours. What I'm suggesting, it does get busy during lunchtime, but nothing that I'll complain about. So my two suggestions was trying to open up Ellsworth Road, which used to be opened. That used to be, because I've been there since '86, and either make it a one-way or widen it for 2 lanes so they can go through there instead of taking that.
Okay, you're talking about making Leslie Road.
That extension, well, they call it, I always called it Leslie Extension, but somebody has been calling it Ellsworth Road, so I'm not sure what is the appropriate road. It's a dirt road, and they blocked it off on one end.
All right.
So they can't get through it, driving. But there's people who live on that road.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Marquette. I'm going to turn this over. First, Chief Police Barker. Chief, do you have anything about Leslie Road that you can add to the conversation?
Well, it's a back road. There's a couple of issues with Leslie Road and doing any type of traffic restrictions to it. First of all, I believe, and I'm sure Bob Mary can back me up on this, it's a county road. It was laid out by the county. Also, it doesn't lie completely within the confines of Rowley, so any restrictions we would try to apply aren't going to be applicable in Ipswich.
Right.
So I don't, and any type of change that you're talking about has got to go through the state Department of Transportation, and they require surveys, and they require alternate paths of travel and other things, so that we have a full plan. As you know, there really isn't any alternate. People that live on Leslie Road got to drive on Leslie Road.
No.
in order to get
Well,
in.
I understand that, but what I see in Beverly and other areas is they put a sign up, and it says no throughway, residents only, and they have a certain time. For example, they'll have 6 to 9, 4 to 7 or something like 4 to 6, it depending. And they just say for residents, you know, but not a throughway. Now, I know that because I used to go take that shortcut. And when they put that sign up, I went, uh-oh, and I started not using it and abiding by the rule that was on that sign.
Now, does that apply to a road going from one town to another town? That's, I don't know.
We would need DP, I keep saying DPW, but
Yeah,
it's DOT. Would need permission from them to do anything like that. And I'm not sure what they would say if we tried to restrict a road to local traffic, where the road didn't start and end in Rowley. The area that you're probably talking about is down by the fire station in North Beverly. I used to use that cut through too.
Yes.
But I'm not quite sure how you're going to enforce something like that.
Well,
I've seen a law on it, and it's pretty hard to say.
It's true, but I figured, maybe some law-abiding citizens will go by that, and maybe it will cut it a little, a little of the traffic, but it would help. I mean, it's just getting really busy, nonstop. And I think as the years are going on, you're going to see it busier and busier. The other day when I pulled out of Leslie Road, from the lights of Agawam was backed up all the way to Christopher Road. So now I know why people were cutting through. I couldn't understand, why would they?
We have a ton of people that come down, if you just stood out there, okay? And there's a ton of people come down from New Hampshire.
Right.
Okay, and they're cutting across to go to Gloucester. And they
Oh,
come
yeah.
down 133, but I didn't know they were using the back road, so it
Yeah,
just takes a matter of
putting
time
together-
for them to find out.
Yeah.
There probably are some, yeah.
Yeah,
The neighbor said she can't believe the amount of New Hampshire number plates, and Maine, she said, coming through Leslie. So that's one thing of trying to cut it down.
excuse me, Gina. Ron, do you have anything to add to?
You know, there's really no way, I'm gonna have to go with a lot of what the chief says, there's no way of enforcing any no-through. And there's no way of opening Ellsworth, since that is not a town-accepted road, and the town don't own it. So you can't direct traffic down that road. But there is an increase, and 133 is one of the busiest roads in the northeast of Massachusetts,
Yes.
if not the busiest. We're seeing more traffic on Newbury. We had the same discussion when the golf course wanted to build, and
Yeah.
people in
Hamlet.
Emily were
Right.
complaining.
Same issues up there.
I paid $2,500 in signs. The police chief put out a cruiser up there. And most of the offenders were the people who actually were complaining.
Right.
So no matter what we do, they're gonna do it.
Yeah, so let me back up for just another minute. I was trying to understand how opening Ellsworth is going to.
Because we're getting a lot of the people from the back neighborhoods too. From Wilson, they go Wilkes Road, Cindy Lane, Wilson Pond, and then they go around and they go to Leslie Road and they go, towards Route 1.
That's really the only way out for them.
Right. And so as they build that neighborhood up, more and more traffic. And like I said, 90% of the traffic is going from 133 to Route 1, not Route 1 to 133.
Well, it doesn't make any sense to go the other way.
No, Dave, you're one of our early morning people. Are you on that side of town?
Yeah, I used to drive the school bus on Leslie Road. Probably picked up your kids.
Sure.
And I know that I haven't done it for a couple of years down there. I still drive the school bus, and I hit Christopher Road. I don't hit Leslie any longer, but I know that at that time, I'm assuming they still do, I used to see the police cruiser down there quite often.
It's on our patrol
monitoring
advisory, along with.
So that,
some of the
what's
other
happening
places.
today, I don't know, but as of a couple of years ago, they were very busy there. Second of all, the Ellsworth Road, we went out and just walked that today. And it's not a town-accepted road. It would, to make it into anything at all, we're talking like, even if we could, we have to take land, make it wider, make it two-way. And I don't know how much extra, you might lose a few cars, but
They're all
it's
gonna
not
come
gonna
out
make
on
a
Leslie
huge,
anyways.
it's not gonna make a huge difference. I live on Newbury Road, and we have the same problem on Newbury Road. I mean, and like the traffic over the years, I've been there for 40 years, and Leslie at that time was a dirt road, basically.
That's right.
at that
Leslie,
time.
yeah.
And so, I mean, Newbury Road, Boxwood Road, Leslie Road, and they've all become much, much busier, and The problem is that they're really not wide enough to handle the volume of traffic.
Right.
But unless we go out and take people's land to make the road wider and put sidewalks in and things like that, it's just not.
Well, I know they were thinking
not
of
doable.
doing that years ago when they started building all the, the houses, and that was turned down. I guess people didn't want to give up.
Yeah, we're basically all in the same boat here, people who
Yeah.
live out in that area
So
of
what do
town.
we do?
The other third issue I want to address is, and we're gonna discuss it later with the DPW, but I get stuck every morning now with a school bus going to Pine Grove School
Yeah.
at that light, and it does, it backs up to Daniels Road at times, and I was gonna suggest to the chief, or if we're gonna write a letter to the DPW, I think the arrow makes a huge difference at the intersection.
Yeah.
But I think we need to have them come out and take a look at the timing, because as a result of that arrow, there's not as many cars are able to go west to east on 133, so consequently, you're losing when that green arrow for the westbound traffic lets traffic go on Route 1, that's 5 to 10 seconds that it used to be that eastbound traffic would be going through the intersection, so I think we really need the DPW to come out and take a look at it and see if they can change the sequence, probably just during the rush hour, but I think it would make
Right. That was my
probably a
third
huge
option.
difference. And I think that would probably cut back on
Yeah.
some of your traffic, but the other, I don't know what other options we have.
People aren't going down Leslie Road because they want to.
Exactly.
They're looking for an alternative, and
Yeah.
the world of GPS has made it
Yes.
Yes.
much easier for people to
Yes,
just
I agree.
take a detour.
Yeah.
I think we need to look at, personally, I think we need to look at ways to try to slow traffic and maybe widen roads and increase visibility. But some of the restrictions that we've talked about this morning or this afternoon aren't really going to be practical.
I thought, Chief, we talked before, Officer Zev, who's one of the patrols on the side of town, we had talked to him, and he spends quite a bit of time down Leslie Road and Newbury Road, both those areas, he patrols that heavily. So, I don't know, step up patrols on the Leslie Road, but I know you're doing it now.
It's perpetually on our patrol
Yes.
advisories, not only during the day for speeding, but during the evening for vandalism type of activities and
Yeah.
stuff, mailboxes and that type of thing. It's just it's a tough situation,
You know what it is? We only have one light. I think 2 lights all of Leslie Road.
Yeah.
So it's pretty dark. There's only a couple of sections. of
Yeah,
light,
it's maybe talk to the chief over in Ipswich, and Chief, you could do that, and maybe see about the other
Well,
side. And
I
don't know how their
can
patrols
speak with
are on
them,
their
but,
side.
I can pretty much tell you the cruiser doesn't come west of Route 1 very often in Ipswich. They're a very busy police department.
Yes, they are.
They're a very busy police department, and if anything happens on this side, they usually call us and we're there first because it takes them a while to get from downtown. But I could speak with Chief Nickus and see.
I don't think people understand how big Ipswich is.
Well,
Yeah.
You go from the neck to the western side of Ipswich.
Yeah.
It can take you,
Oh, yeah.
9 to 12 minutes, I think, from from the center of town. So it is, that's why
we had
they.
a call at the country club today, and the officers, 2 of our cruisers responded, and they were the second and third cars
Yep.
there, while waiting for cars to come from downtown Ipswich.
So the best option would probably be to see what we can do with the lights. Maybe that will help. a
I think the
little.
light sequence would make a difference for a lot of people.
Right.
There's
If
a lot
we
of
can
people I
reduce the
know that like it.
backflow, then they're going to
Yeah,
be
then
less
they'll
apt
just
to
keep
take that
on
little
going,
curvy road.
right? So it'll be a little less, which is, I'll be happy.
We could dig up Leslie Road, make it a dirt road again.
Oh God, I was pregnant. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
pregnant with twins when that was big holes, and that wasn't
No, that
fun.
road was brutal, and there's a lot of houses down there now, that whole
And
area.
Oh,
is
yeah.
built up
And
And
tremendously.
we're facing the same problems in other neighborhoods
Yeah.
as well. You brought that up as at the Dodge Daniels
Yeah.
section.
Oh, yeah.
The same
Yeah.
thing going on there, and the growing pains.
Weathersfield
you know.
Street's bad, I mean, it's.
All these little
kinds of
streets
areas.
were started off as cow paths. And,
Right.
And,
Yeah.
Gina, how's this? We'll take this under advisement.
Okay.
We'll look at it. We will come back and return to this
Okay.
issue. We're not just going to sweep this to the side.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it needs to be addressed. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. I thank you
Appreciate
for your letter and thank you for coming in. And we may ask you again to come in. Okay.
No problem. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for coming in tonight, Gina.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Chief, thank you. You're going to stick around. huh?
Happens to be.
Okay. All right, thank you again. Okay. All right, that was our I apologize for being a little bit behind tonight, but we have a 7:30 appointment, acting refuge manager Frank Drzuski, excuse me about that. Drzuski, discuss closure Stackyard Road. I'm just going to read this briefly into the record.
Mr. Chairman, could you just make an announcement? We have a sign-in sheet that,
Oh, yes. Anybody hasn't signed in? Okay. And just to remind everybody that this meeting is being audio recorded and video recorded. All right. The Board of Selectmen has requested the acting manager, Frank Drzuski, to attend this meeting for the purpose of discussing the Parker River National Refuge closures of Stackyard Road. Raleigh Clammers use this section of the road to access Nelson's Island and is staging area for emergencies that occur in the Raleigh River. The following are attending this meeting: Michael Cook, Mike, okay, Shellfish Commissioner, Harbor Master Bill Demento, Larry White, a concerned Raleigh resident, Darren Swim, okay, aide to Congressman Tierney, AJ Paglia, AJ is not arrived yet. Okay, Chief of Staff to Senator Tarr. AJ is always running late because with Senator Tarr's position, it's always difficult to get out of the State House. And Kelsey Thomas, aide to Representative Hill. Kelsey, how are you? I spoke to you on the phone. Okay. Attach pictures of Stackyard Road leading out of Nelson Island. If we can't cover all the issues during tonight's meeting, we can resume discussion with Mr. Drzuski during another upcoming meeting. Sure. Okay, sir. So with that, I'll turn it over to you first.
You know, I've read your letter, and just basically the tone of the letter made it sound like we're closing the area off completely. I just wanted to make sure that, realize that the only thing we're talking about, and it's a big thing, I'm not trying to make light of it, is we're not allowing vehicles to drive out there. And I've been here 21 years, and in my experience, it's been the commercial clammers that have had the ability to drive their vehicles out to the end. Several years ago, it's probably been 4 years, 5 years, I don't have the exact date, but we were approached by folks from Raleigh, the clamming community specifically, and they asked if it would be okay if they would be able to put clamshells on the road. That's how the road has been maintained for many, many years. And at the time we said, yeah, sure, just let us know when you're going to go out there. Nothing happened. And it was, like I said, 4 years, 3-4 years. I don't know exactly how long it was, but no one asked us. No one did anything about it. So during that course of time, the road just seemed to deteriorate even more, and it's just inundated with water. Oftentimes, throughout the course of the tidal cycle, it's covered with water. I mean, there are times it's dry, but basically the grade of the road is below the surrounding salt marsh, and the refuge just felt like it's beyond the point of no return. We didn't want to maintain it, and no one seemed to want to maintain it, so we basically abandoned the road as a route for automobiles. We're still allowing folks to walk out there to go clamming and fishing and duck hunting and bird watching. It's never an issue. So I received your letter, and we had a meeting back in April of this year, 2013. I believe you might have attended that meeting.
I did.
Okay, right. And with some of the clamming community folks, Bill Demento and Mr. Grunstrom, DPW, I think, was also represented.
Right.
And Mr. Grunstrom asked if we could consider opening the road or having it available for vehicles to drive out. And Manager Graham Taylor basically held firm and said that no, we've abandoned the road, that we're not going to allow vehicles to drive out there any longer. There were some concerns about emergency access, and so we understood that as a concern, and I dropped off a key to the police department, and I dropped off a key, I believe, to the harbor master for that padlock so they can access that road if there was an emergency. And I also sent an email to and talked to Jim Sprague, who's with the Department of Environmental Protection. He's their wetlands person. And, I mentioned the situation to Jim, and Jim sent me an email. I don't have an official letter. I have an email from Jim. And if you just let me
Sure,
just read
please,
that part of
please
it.
do.
You guys familiar with Jim Sprague, the DEP? He's the wetlands regulator, so to speak.
I've heard the name, but I've never met
Okay.
him personally.
I'll get to the gist of it here. The situation you have described is a very important one for Mass as well as other coastal states that must deal with sea level rise, marsh migration in response to sea level rise, and what to do with inundated infrastructure. Several towns in Mass have already had to abandon roads and infrastructure in response to shoreline retreat. Since the road has been abandoned and is being reclaimed with salt marsh vegetation and is now below the spring high tide level, this area would now be considered as part of the salt marsh per CMR 310, 10- whatever, of the Mass Wetlands Protection Act regulations. Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, Chapter 131, Section 40, and its regulations, and he quotes, the numbers, prohibits any activity, this includes fill, that would destroy any portion of the marsh and would have an adverse effect on the productivity of the marsh. Nor shall any activity alter its growth, distribution, and composition. Continuing to keep the Nelson Island Road elevated would destroy the marsh colonizing it and would also create a berm through the marsh, preventing salt water from distributing throughout the system. And that would further impair and create an adverse impact to the marsh that could not be permitted. So that was Jim's response to what I sent him about the road.
I fully understand his concerns and everything else, but we have clamors going back, to the 1640s. There were, our agriculture.
Sure, but they weren't driving cars back then.
Well, that's true too, but in trying to get, a couple of bushels of clams, we don't have that many commercial clammers. What do we have, Mike?
Probably 12, 14.
12 commercial clammers in town. And for them to get out there and to get those bushels and to bring them back, it is quite the hike. Mike, I'm thinking it's like about a mile, isn't it?
It's going to be close to it, yes.
To drag those, a couple of bushels.
Yep.
Senator Tarr just walked in. Senator,
Good evening.
We just started to talk about Nelson Island. So, you know the senator.
We know it
Quite well.
If I just, can I interrupt that? The volume of clams, I thought, was one of the major issues, because they're mostly senior clammers, and it's not a small volume of a couple of buckets of clams that you're hauling in from Nelson Island. What's the volume? Was it over 30 buckets or pounds, or I'm not sure what the...
Well, a bushel of clams is 50 pounds.
Oh,
50
okay.
pounds.
So you're talking, what, a couple of bushels?
You can dig 3 bushels, so
Three.
you have, you're talking 150 pounds to lug a mile of rope.
Right.
I mean, it's a long haul.
Right.
Yes, Ron?
My only concern with this, and the closing the road, and we talked down there,
Right, we did.
is they talk about any fill will be washed off.
Right.
In maintaining Patmos, in maintaining Stackyard, we have several low areas we call causeways. And now we dump hundreds and hundreds of tons during the past few years of material on these causeways. All that material is washed over. And we cannot maintain those roads. And Mr. Murray, you've been down there. These causeways are also under the marsh level. If we're closing this section, why isn't Stackyard, why isn't Patmos being closed down? Because these roads are below as well. And no matter what we're suggesting we can do to this to save it, allow clammers, what they're not allowing us, we're doing on other roads that is completely washing away and going right into the marsh.
Well,
I can offer this. Subsequent to the note that Jim Sprague wrote me, I mentioned that we were having this meeting this evening and asked if he could participate. He was not able to, but he did send me another email.
okay.
Allow me to read
Please,
this
Mike.
section. This is maybe a little more positive news for you guys.
Okay.
He said, I again looked at the area at the end of the road on the aerials, and it is almost exactly equidistant between Raleigh and Newberry boat ramps where emergency vessels could be launched to get to the section of the marsh quickly. I don't think that's a real major issue because the keys were provided to the police and, the harbor master that they could access that during an emergency. So he further goes on to say, I suggest that Raleigh select a few people like the police, fire department, DPW rep, conservation agent to meet with the refuge and DEP, myself and someone from our Northeast Regional Office personnel, to sit down to see if there is any improvements that could be made that would allow emergency access without impacting the marsh. So that's Jim suggesting we have another meeting,
Okay.
get together and maybe figure out what can be done.
Okay. I see this as as an impact to the aquaculture in Raleigh. This has been going back to 1630. I understand about the condition of the road, but my concern is with, I don't want this industry to die, and we've had so much of our fishing industry die along the coast. Senator, Congressman Cheney's office and Senator Tarr and Representative Hills and all trying to help the fisheries and the aquaculture business along the coast here. So with that, Senator, do you have anything to?
Actually, if I could, through you, Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to understand, and I apologize for coming in a little bit late, and I think I might have missed this part, but Frank, what is the reason for the closure? Is it because the road somehow is degraded, or because there's a negative influence on the surrounding wetlands? Or if you could help me understand that, it would be really good.
Well, we haven't maintained the road in a number of years, and about 4 or 5 years ago, we were approached by the Raleigh clamming community, and they asked if they could put clamshells out to maintain the road. And at that time, we said, sure, just let us know when you're going to go out there. Nothing happened for 4 or 5 years, and the road, in our estimation, seemed to have degraded further, and we felt it was past the point of repair. We didn't want to repair it. We didn't have a need to go out there with any of our vehicles, and so we basically made a decision, the manager at the time made a decision to abandon the road, meaning that we didn't want anyone driving out there. The road is open, people can walk out there and continue their activities, but driving is the issue. And we have our biologist here, Nancy Powell, who might be able to just shed a little more light on the actual condition of the road and the salt marsh surrounding it.
Yeah, so I think the deterioration seems to happen rather quickly, and I think those of you that have been out there might see this in the last 2 years or so. Last summer and fall, I noticed, and our maintenance guys noticed when they went out to mow that field, that there's 3 sections where there's big salt pans on both sides of the road, and either because the marsh is accreting, which it should be, we wanted to do that with sea level rise, or because the material from the road has been washing out over the last couple of years. There's 3 major sections that is actually always wet, even at low tide it is wet. So right now, if you want to walk out to Nelson's Island, you need waders. You can't really go out there if you go because it's wet, and that's not been the case as I remember in the last 10 years. I have some pictures, which, can I get a copy?
I do too.
Yeah.
Can I pass these up to John?
Sure.
Mr. Chairman, we have some aerials that the conservation agent took in the meeting package.
So, if you look at the second page, there are portions of the road where there's algae actually growing in the middle of the road. There's always fish there. There's always birds there when you go each time. So the marsh,
Nate,
certain parts.
excuse me, I have to get my camera. Nate, if you can zoom in on this, that's what Ms. Powell was talking about.
And that's those sections that's impassable, and that's what caused the refuge manager at the time, Glenn Taylor, to say, let's not, because we used to drive out on the road for certain management activities, and he decided that we should not drive out there anymore because the road is now impassable, even to our four-wheel drive vehicle. And at that time, we decided, let's just go ahead and abandon the road, because we could fix it, both for our use and for the farmers' use. But as Jim Gregg's email refers to, there's negative consequences to the salt marsh for us to doing that. So at that time, we decided to kind of give up the convenience of driving out there and just let the marsh go, the road go.
We felt that even if we wanted to repair the road, that we might not be able to based on mass wetlands protection laws. And we didn't pursue it after Jim, sent that email, he basically said, well, it sounds like it's a lost cause as far as we're concerned.
Quick question.
Yes.
How deep does the water get during a high tide? A normal high tide, and I'm sure when you get the moon tides and.
I was out there the last high tide, which I believe is like a 10-foot tide. Yeah.
The picture.
There's some sections that are probably about 18 inches to 2 feet, and there's some sections that are 1 to 2 inches. But almost the entire road is underwater at a high tide right now, and this wasn't the case a few years ago. And like I said, there's 3 sections that are always, so that's probably a low tide, and that's one of the salt pan systems. There's 3 sections just like that, where it's always wet, even at low tide.
Okay, so building this road up with shells would be detrimental?
Depends on how you do it. If the elevation is higher than the marsh, which is normally how you would maintain a road, what it does is it stops the flow of sediment at high tide. And that sediment is very important to the marsh keeping up with sea level rise. And that's one of the models from the Marine Biological Lab actually indicating that for our salt marsh going forward, we probably will lose some of our salt marsh because we don't have enough sediment coming into our system. So sediment is very important. So if you block that movement of sediment, we might endanger the adjacent marsh because it might not be able to keep up with sea level rise.
Okay.
So you're talking, if you wanted to build the road up for vehicles, you're talking at least a 2-foot build up, and in theory anyway, if we were to do something to make the road passable for vehicles, is that what we're talking about?
Well, Mike,
I know I have a 4-wheel drive truck, and just before it closed, I was down there 2 or 3 times, and I mean, the tide was going out, and there was probably I know where they're talking about, the second or the third one there. It's always got like the water there. I bet you there was 6 to 8 inches of water there. And then of course if you have a flood tide, which is a higher tide, of course the water comes up on the marsh, and it's probably longer for it, to drain off. But I mean. And I think Danny here, he goes clamming down there a lot, and he's got a smaller thing, and you never had any problem there, right, Danny?
No, I was
Danny, can you
in the winter time.
Identify yourself, Danny.
I'm Dan Crowley, a commercial climber in town.
Okay, what's your address? I'm sorry.
408 Central Street.
Thank you, sir. Danny.
Okay. Yes, I did. In fact, for the last few years, I've probably used it more than anyone has. And it has gotten worse, as they're saying. But to make the road usable, it doesn't have to be up over the marsh. I mean, we only use it going out at half tide, and tide's halfway out and halfway back in, at the very closest to high tide. So we're pretty much on the lower end of the tide all the time. So if it was just even level with the marsh, it wouldn't have to be built up over the marsh for anyone to use it, whether it be the refuge or whoever, because they could go through 2 or 3 inches of water to get out there if they, for with their maintenance or whatever they'd use it for.
Now, as I understand it, the problem has been because of the ruts in the road. People have been riding around on the edges of the road.
A little bit, but you can only go so far.
Yeah, we're not seeing much of that. I think
Okay.
because it's really hard to drive in salt marsh, so you really don't want to get off
There's
the road.
there's a photo, one of those photos that actually shows a salt pan in the road, and it's almost looking like the salt pan and the road are becoming one. Yeah, further, the one up on top.
The one up the top, okay.
There's another photo too that might even show it
This
better.
one?
Yeah. I mean, everybody, I'm
You
not
have better
going to get
pictures,
into
I think.
climate change and sea level rise. However, it is a phenomenon that is occurring, sea level rise. And Nancy mentioned salt marsh subsidence. Subsidence, I'm sorry. And if the sediment doesn't have the ability on a high tide to come in there and lay down sediment, the marsh isn't going to grow. It's going to continue to subside. And if you have impediments like berms and roads, that's going to change the hydrology, the natural functioning of a salt marsh. So,
Ron?
Is there anything we can put down under the shells to allow the settlement to flow? Pipes, anything?
I don't know that.
As far as the daily science is, the sediment movement typically happens on a fly time, and it's a sheet flow. So it's not like you can put a culvert or something to bring in that sediment, because most of that happens, on a flooding tide when it covers the whole marsh. But, we're still learning a lot about our salt marshes. There's still a lot we don't know, especially when it comes to sea level rise. We're just trying to keep up with it as we,
Sure.
as we go.
I would like to know a little bit more about the use. My understanding, I mean, I've been here a long time, but probably don't know the marsh as well as you guys. You guys are out there all the time clamming. But the way it was explained to me is that it's used mainly in the wintertime.
Yes.
When the boat ramps are frozen up and you can't launch a boat.
Correct.
And most of the clammers will try to get out there in the wintertime. And so how many folks do you think use it in the wintertime?
The last couple of years has been 2 or 3.
2 or 3?
And most of the time, 1, and that's been me. And that's not every day either.
Right.
Especially in the wintertime, you have almost a whole week at times when there's no tide during the daylight hours.
Right.
So it's very limited.
Are you clamming in the sound, or are you clamming in the creeks?
Well, right at the very end of Nelson Island, where there's a little parking area there,
Yeah.
there's good razor clam flats there, which in the wintertime is really when we get the most money for razors. And so it's really kind of important to a few people.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Can I recommend that you suggested that there could be a meeting
Yes.
regarding emergency access?
Right.
And it would seem to me that if we're gonna eventually be able to do anything beyond emergency access, it would seem that we need to first come to an agreement on emergency access.
Right.
And if we can if all the agencies can kind of come to an agreement on that, the next step would be to look at possibly further access. But I mean, if we can't even get emergency access, I don't think we're ever gonna get to ordinary, for the regular clamming people.
Well, you
So-
really have emergency access now. I mean,
Well, yeah, but we like to, I think it sounds like we're looking to get at least the ability for vehicular access on an emergency basis if need be. And obviously it's a touchy, there are times it sounds like when you're not gonna get a vehicle down there anyway, if it happens to be a flood tide or, without a boat. But I mean, I think it maybe to begin to come to some kind of a solution, if we could take a look at emergency access and come up with an agreement with everybody on that, then we can sit down and look at the next step.
Yeah, I
which
think
would
the
be-
suggestion that Jim Sprague had is a good one, that we get together
Yes.
with his folks, Jim, and people from Raleigh that are interested, and have a meeting and just try to brainstorm a little bit.
Yeah, it gets all the involved parties together, at
Right.
least everybody knows each other and can talk to each other, and then we'll go see where we go from there.
And one question from
Yeah,
our harbor master,
Bill
Bill.
Demento, harbor master and Raleigh resident. Hi, Frank, good to see you. And in fairness to Frank, just so the board is advised, Frank did provide me with a key for emergency access. So we've never been denied, and I know he's given one to the police department as well, for emergency access. And part of the emergency oil spill response and hazardous waste response team, we do recognize that area as a staging area for deployment of oil booms and things like that, if necessary. We also recognize the fact that we've got vessels that we'll use strategically out of Raleigh to access the area as well. So they've never denied that, and that was never my understanding that they would deny emergency access. I think it really comes down to, back in 2008, I think most people are aware that was the beginning of the recession. The clamming industry, the seafood industry in general was hit very hard, just like the rest of our economy. And a lot of hopes and wishes and dreams were shot at the beginning of this recession. And this is one of those things that just happened out of our control, and I think was never the intent of the clam commissioners and shellfish warden to abandon maintenance of the road. It just so happened that the economy changed in a very drastic way that affected everybody's lives, and that was basically backburned. I think that it probably could be revisited. I think Frank's suggestion that we get together and discuss possibly some alternatives to dealing with a seasonal use and customary and historical and traditional use of select livelihoods that are made on the commercial clam flats. I think it's very important. I don't think it was the intent when the land taking occurred back in the 50s for Federal Wildlife Refuge to eliminate customary and historical use. It's certainly the charter of the Federal Wildlife Refuge is very clear in protecting our environment. But this, I think, a meeting of the minds could possibly identify a solution that will allow some very limited seasonal access by the clamming community that relies on that road for their livelihood.
Thank you, Bill. Well said. Congressman Attorney's aide, I'm sorry, Darren, do you have anything to add?
I mean, we're happy to work with the select board here and Senator Tarr's office to find a reasonable solution. It doesn't sound like too much is being asked by the town or the clammers from town. So, you know, I think what everybody said here kind of lends towards a reasonable solution and something we're happy to assist with.
Thank you, Darren. Kelsey?
We definitely want to second that. We're open for conversation.
Okay. Kelsey is Brad Hill's aide, so I want to thank you for, I talked to her a couple of times. Larry?
Yes, Larry White, Raleigh resident. I'm just going to speak on behalf of all the other residents that maybe aren't commercial clammers, but would like to go out there for clamming, bird hunting, or not bird hunting, but looking at the wildlife and things like that. But basically, we can only get out there on Sundays because it's closed to everything, even people, from Monday through Saturday.
It's during waterfowl season, just to be clear.
Well, it just says here, this trail is currently closed Monday through Saturday to all activities except waterfowl hunting and commercial clamming.
Right. It's closed. There's a seasonal closure on it during waterfowl season because there's conflicts with bird watchers going out there while people are duck hunting. So that's the reason why it's closed. And once the waterfowl season is over, we remove that sign and you have access 7 days a week.
When does this sign come down? Because it's been up for about 3 months.
Well, it should have been up at the start of waterfowl season, which would have been September, and it'll probably stay up until the end of waterfowl season, which is January, end of January.
Okay.
So Frank, we can put something together and for a meeting with yourself and
Sure. Jim Sprague
and Jim
Right.
and
and
Senator
whoever's
Tarr's,
interested from Raleigh.
AJ, yourself, Senator, we can.
Yeah, and if I could, Mr. Chairman, I just want to point out to the board, we've had a lot of good experience working with Frank, and we've always found these folks to be very responsive and very partnering in terms of their approach, and I think we can find an answer here. One of the things that strikes me is that we may be fighting climatological changes, and we need to be aware of that. In other words, this may be a progressive issue, and we may not be able to solve it forever. But I think the harbor master is right. I think we're talking about historic traditional use. We're not talking about everybody in the world. So for instance, maybe we could think of a more limited access, whether it be by some sort of identification issued by the town or something, so that not everyone is trying to get out there. I also think, as someone who has a fair amount of experience getting stuck in four-wheel drive vehicles, that the use of this is going to be somewhat self-limiting anyway. In other words, I don't think everyone is going to try to get out there, but we may want to have some sort of limitation. I also think it would be good to have the meeting with the DEP because we could talk about potential for sediment transport and actually maybe talk about some innovative ways to accomplish that, given the fact that this is a relatively new issue with regard to accretion in the marshes. So I think it would be a very positive conversation. The only other thing that I would suggest, in addition to echoing the fact that Representative Hill and the Congressman, again, we're all very good at being part of a team, and I think we can help with this. But the other thing that I would suggest is that it may be helpful to have the DPW from the town involved. Because there's some engineering expertise and some very practical knowledge of how to address these situations, and having them at the table could be very helpful because there may be some cost-effective ways that we could partner on to be able to get this done. And I think if they're at the table, they could be very significant contributors to that discussion.
I want to thank all of you for coming in here tonight, and Mike, thank you, the commission, and Dan, to represent the clammers, thank you all for coming in, and Kelsey. Darren and Senator, especially you, you're always in our corner for us. And Frank, thank you.
You're welcome.
And we can sit down. We can hash this out. Thank you.
Can we just ask one quick thing too? When, you know, we're talking about doing repairs and these kinds of things cost money. So in the discussions, if we could be kind of looking at alternative ways of, that we could, if we can do something, how we fund this. And that's probably a critical part, because if we come up with a solution, there's no funding, then
I think the only
nothing's
thing
gonna
that
get
might
done.
tie our hands, I don't want to be negative, but is basically what Jim Sprague tells us about the Mass Wetlands Protection Act, and whether or not we can, you know, what we can do, if we can do anything.
No, I think I agree with what you guys are saying, that I think climate-wise, I think we're definitely under the gun. And I'm sure Sandy last year, this was the anniversary right around this week, was certainly those kinds of storms, we've got a number of them in the last few years, have really put a dent in the marsh. We don't see it so much because it's out in the marsh, but you guys you people that deal with it every day, I'm sure.
Actually,
see
some good
huge
news about
changes.
Sandy. We just found out the other day, we received a grant for a fair amount of money, $340,000, to do some modeling. We're gonna kick some money in to do some modeling that the United States Geological Survey and possibly the Army Corps of Engineers, to model some of the hydrology in this area and possible sediment transport also. So we're gonna be sitting down with USGS and Army Corps to figure out what questions to ask, so we put together a good model.
I think it's been a real valuable discussion. I'm not a clammer, I don't know anything about clamming, but I think it's been really valuable and the input from everybody.
We'll be in touch then
Well,
about this
as
meeting.
a lover of clam chowder, it's very dear to my heart, okay?
Mr. Chairman, before we break up, one, I'd suggest we serve clam chowder at the meeting. And two, Frank, are you going to be the point person? Because somebody needs to take the initiative to do that, if you would keep us all in the loop.
Yes.
I know we'll all be happy to participate.
It's gonna hinge on Jim's schedule, Jim Sprague.
Again, I want to thank you all for coming in here and having this discussion tonight. This is very important. Agriculture is so important to our area. I mean, it may not seem, we only got 12 commercial claimants. It impacts us greatly here in
It's
the
pretty
town of
important for
Raleigh.
these guys.
Yes.
Very important.
It is. All right, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bruce, thank you.
Hi, Debbie again. Thanks for coming out. We appreciate
A
that.
message from Brad, his hospital visit didn't go entirely well, so
Be in
he's
touch. Yeah,
yeah, so we'll need to make sure, yeah, that'd be good.
All right.
Good to see you, Jack. What? Good to see you, thank you. Good to see you. Good to see you.
Bruce, thank you.
We'll try to work this out, it's
Sure.
not gonna be an elaborate situation. My pleasure. See you soon. Thank you. See you, Deb. Chief, good to see you. Too. I don't get to see you anymore, just by phone.
I sent my emissary, agent.
Thanks, Bruce.
You can leave that open.
Okay. All right. As usual, we act a little bit too much. But we'll keep on moving here. All right. That was a very productive meeting. I'm very glad that all worked out the way it did. And hopefully, we'll go forward. Running a little bit behind. We have to go through some really quick. Move this out of the way. Okay, general business, signed cultural council state contract form. Okay, the Raleigh Cultural Council has received $4,250 in state funds to be used, local grants for cultural purposes. In order for the town to receive the funds, the chairman needs to sign that standard contract form and authorize the signature.
We'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman, to sign it.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
I will sign. Okay, just one signature? That's it? Deb?
Yeah, we can sign that after.
Okay, there we go. Okay, moving on. Okay, discuss installation of traffic arrow at Route 1 and 133. I, Chairman Snow, noticed that there's now a green arrow on the traffic light intersection of Route 1 and 133 for the eastbound traffic of 133 that is taking a left turn down southbound down Route 1. I mentioned the need for the arrow in this location to the Mass DOT officials who attended a meeting hosted by Representative Hill in September at the intersection of Route 1 and Central and Glen. Mass DOT officials came to discuss the town's safety concerns pertaining to this intersection. There have been a long backups at the eastbound side of Route 133, and the arrow is making it easy for drivers to take that left-hand turn on Route 1 south now. I happened to mention it to them at the time, and I was amazed to see it a couple weeks later. I am calling for a vote to send a letter to Paul Stedman, acting Mass DOT Director for the district, and thanking him and his staff for prompt installing this arrow. And again, we were out Representative Hill up at Central Street, and I went over to District 4 supervisor, and I just happened to mention that there was no arrow, especially if you could have a birthday, a couple of birthdays, if you're sitting there and you're heading eastbound on 133. The institution of savings would be on your left-hand side, Agawam Diner.
Westbound.
You mean westbound,
I'm sorry,
eastbound
westbound,
side?
westbound.
Going westbound.
Westbound, because there is one heading eastbound. But Agawam Diner's diagonally across to the left, and there was no arrow there. And lo and behold, less than 3 weeks later after that conversation, he placed the arrow. So, and it's been saving a lot of time. I don't know if you've noticed it.
Mr. Chairman, just to bring it up, and I mentioned it briefly earlier, and the chief can probably back me up, that I know in the mornings, we're getting a tremendous backup. Since that arrow's been in, we're getting a tremendous backup.
Now we're getting backup?
On the west side coming east.
Right.
It's going back as far,
experiencing that, yeah.
it's going back as far as some mornings beyond Daniels Road. So I would just request that in a separate letter or a separate, that we ask the DPW to
Ask
take
for
a look at the
timing.
time. It's a timing issue. The lights work great with the arrows. I think everybody's appreciative of that, but it's just a matter of maybe during the rush hour, because there's a tremendous amount of traffic that goes towards Ipswich
We were
down
actually noticing an
133.
increase even before the arrow. Just before the fair came along, we were noticing traffic was backing up. So, but I think timing is definitely something that
At
could
least
be
take a look at
tweaked.
it anyway.
Sure.
And I don't know how they do
But
that.
trying to get out of town at that particular time, trying to go southbound, it's almost
Oh, no,
like you're
it's-
taking your life in your hand to take
I
that
live on
left-hand
that side,
turn.
and
You
most
know.
of the time I'd go straight to 95 because it wasn't worth trying to make the corner.
Yes.
Right.
Now
Yeah.
you can
You
take
make
that corner.
that corner. So I guess with the thank you letter, if we can put about the timing of that arrow.
Either that or if the chief was, we don't want to spoil the thank you letter. Maybe in a separate communication, we can, I don't know who does it, talk to the DPW.
I don't
Just
know.
Just
I
do
can
a
put together-
timing study and
Yeah.
explain the situation to them. And
Yeah,
they
I
can
can do
observe
that.
during the rush hour what happens out there, and if we can help a little bit on it,
I could do that.
it would probably make a big difference.
Okay, let's do that.
I move that we send the letter.
Have a motion?
Second.
We have a tie here. Second, Bob?
Bob got it.
Okay, all those in
I have a
favor?
second.
Aye. Okay, again, Paul Stedman, I can't say enough for a supervisor, that was a quick reaction. I mean, Ron, that was,
I was right there, and he, right after we got done talking to him on the 25th at around 9:15, he was right up there.
he was right up there.
And
can't believe it's
we
been
requested
on
that in the
Saturday.
past too.
You know what's
They
funny
did it on a
is
Saturday?
years
They did it
ago,
on
on a number
Saturday.
of occasions, we've requested that.
Yeah.
They've always said, no, we
Yeah.
can't do it because there's not enough land, not enough width.
Yeah.
It
and
was
They
always
always had a
some reason.
reason. So whatever magic you pulled was worth it.
I have to, it was it was Representative Hill that got us there
Right.
and met out there, so I have to, all the accolades to Representative Hill. So, anyways, and maybe a little letter to Representative Hill, thank him for their concern. We have a
Yes.
Motion?
I would add, I'll make that motion.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right, road opening permit, request from National Grid to open 237 Dodge Road for a cut and cap of gas service. Looked it all over, gentlemen?
Yeah, I'll give you the motion, Mr. Chairman.
I have a motion, I have a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye,
Mr. Chairman, that can be signed later. I know we're
okay.
pressed for
All
time.
right, we're pressed a little bit tonight. Okay, next, request from Pine Grove School PTA to hang a banner of the town common backstop promoting PGS Crafts Fair. Any discussion from the board?
I'll make that motion, we grant that.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Okay, and old business, we have an update in 375th.
If I
Joe
make
Perry?
it just a quick comment, the new lights on the common are outstanding. And I did see a package from the light department about the posts, and that we can attach a sign to it, which leads me to the 375th anniversary, that would like to put up, attach the signs on the posts advertising the 375th anniversary for next year. So we're going to work out some way to get that done.
Thank you, Joe. Okay.
And Mr. Chairman, while
Yes.
the highway surveyor is here, I'd just like to thank him and his men for, they did an outstanding job out there spreading loam and planting seed and put a lot of work into it in addition to what the light department did. So it was a real group
Yes.
effort, and
Yes.
the place really looks
They
great.
guys did an
Yeah, we'll
excellent job.
we'll come back, I think, in the next couple of weeks, and we'll address the common again. And the common is looking spectacular. Great job from all the departments involved. New business. Accept donation for of a painting from Diana Short. Diana Short is donating a painting that she found and purchased online. The painting depicts the center of the town as it appeared in the 1920s. It was not painted during this time. It was painted approximately 40 to 50 years ago by S. Howard, as shown in the lower corner. The Board of Selectmen needs to vote to accept the donation of this painting. Bob, I take it you have the copy of this painting?
We do have the painting right
From
here.
Ms. Short. Nate, if you can zoom in on this.
Basically, Bailey's Corner, over at this side here. The Jerry Todd's store is next. If I can see what I'm, the Evans Building is right here on the corner. And this is the church down here. And they go, what is now the drugstore on the other side.
Is that you, Bob, on the bicycle there?
Yes, that's me. Yeah, I'm kind of pedaling up towards Town Hall to get some work done. Actually, this painting was hung in the First National Bank when it was in the Moses block. And it kind of disappeared for a while. It's had like 3 or 4 owners since then. As Diane said, she found it online. Thought it was interesting, actually purchased it. When she saw it, she felt that the town needed to have it. The town deserved it, so here we are. We'll hang it up on,
Ms. Short, thank you so much.
prominent place in the town
Okay,
hall.
for first we have to accept it. So I have a motion.
I'll make the motion to
I have a
accept.
motion from the board. Do I have a second? I have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Ms. Short,
very
thank
much.
you, and let's, along with
Yeah, we'll
that
send a letter
motion,
as
we'll
part of
send a
that
letter of
motion.
thank you. Thank you again. That's part of our history of our town. Thank you. Thank you, Paul.
Very nice.
Okay, everybody read the minutes for September 23rd, 2013.
Yes.
Any comments? I have-
I'll make a motion, we accept the minutes.
I have a motion from Jack. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Okay, I am, I'll read this motion at the end, but I'm just gonna go complete through. Raleigh Food Pantry is in need of donations. The food pantry is open from Tuesdays 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. and Thursdays from 5:30 p.m. to 7 p.m. They're reopening this Thursday, correct?
I
They were
believe so.
closed
We were
for,
working off the information you provided us, so
Yes.
that would be
so I think,
our
they- if I
understanding.
remember right, they reopened,
They were doing some painting.
there's some painting in there. So I think it's the 31st they reopen this Thursday. The town has the following vacant seats: Conservation Commission, Zoning Board of Appeals, Associate 2 members, 2 fence viewers positions, and wood lumber bark inspector. Battery recycling box is located right here at the town hall and also at the library. If you have any old D-size batteries, C batteries, throw them in a little plastic bag. It's a great way of being green. Don't throw them in the trash. Dump them right. Don't dump them. Place them right here out in the hallway. Special town meeting next week, November the 4th, 2013, 7:30 at the Pine Grove School. Need a quorum. We need you. It's a good way to participate in your town government. You need to participate. Please come to the meeting.
We need 100 voters.
We need 100 voters. But again,
It's critical.
you know, you tune in every Monday night. We need you at this meeting. It's critical. This is your government. Okay, let me see. Household hazardous waste collection, Saturday, November 23rd, 8:30 to 12:30. There's a list, it's on the
Cable channel.
on the cable
web-
channel
website.
and also on the website, what you can drop off, and that will be at Ron at the Highway Department on the 23rd, 8:30 to 12:30. Let me see, Halloween trick or treat will be held this Thursday, October 31st, 2013, 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. Fall safety driving, just a reminder that angle of that sun, clean off those windows so you can see everything. The angle's going to get worse and worse for the next couple of weeks. So, and don't forget, we have daylight savings time and drop it Saturday night, drop it back 1 hour. So otherwise, you're going to be early for everything. Okay. Let me see. With that, we are now going to go into a joint meeting with this zoning board of appeals and make a motion to go. Ask somebody to make a motion to go into open meeting.
Chief, get the ZBA in, please,
Oh,
in order to go into the meeting.
yes.
Chief, could you get the ZBA, please?
Thanks, Chief. Sorry about that.
ZBA.
Yes.
Right up front. Gentlemen. We reserve all these seats up front for you.
I know. Going out back? I'm going out the
Come on, guys, come on, up here.
The chairman has his front seat by himself. And you've got protection right beside you, you're all set.
Mr. Chairman, could you make an announcement regarding the sign-in sheet, please?
Yes. We have a sign-in sheet, so if everybody please sign in. Just these proceedings right now are being audio taped, videotaped. We're going to go into a joint meeting. Okay, is everybody here? Okay. With that, okay. I call for a motion to go into, call for a motion and a vote to open the joint meeting of the Raleigh Board of Selectmen and the Zoning Board of Appeals by roll call vote.
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion. I have a second. All those in favor? Roll call vote.
Jack Cook. Aye, Joe Perry.
I, Robert Snow.
Hi, Robert and Mary.
Hi, Dave Peterson.
I, Donald Thurston.
Gentlemen?
Robert Clough.
I did go back.
Aye, Tom Heikert.
Aye, Nathaniel Dummer.
Okay. We are now in joint. Yes, I gotta put next. Okay. We'll now go into a joint meeting, executive session, for the purpose of discussing litigation. With that, that's part of the motion. So maybe we should do the motion again, okay? So with that, the roll call vote.
Jack Cook.
Joe Perry.
I, Robert Snow.
Hi, Robert, Mary.
Hi, Dave Peterson.
I, Donald Thurston. Robert Clough.
I did go back.
Tom Heikert.
Okay. We are not returning to.
Sorry.
Oh,
Yeah.
That.
What?
Roll call vote.
Okay.
Okay.
Just say aye.
Nat,
You
come
have
on
to-
up here and sit down.
Okay.
We need
Aye,
your vote.
Nathaniel Dummer.
Okay. Thank you, Nat. We're not returning to regular session. Okay. So that with that, Nat.
One chair, so I just-
Good night, everyone.